Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. So today we'll continue with the place where we stopped about the questions. So last time we were having a discussion on the different pronunciations, and the connection was suddenly lost after we talk about the schwa sound a and the original ordinary a. So I think we mentioned about how this katama is pronounced in Sri Lanka as katama actually katama, but in Myanmar katama. Not only in Myanmar, I think most of the Pāļi readers would pronounce it as a, not as a. So in Sri Lanka, what has happened, the second a, if the a is with the first consonant or the first letter, because consonant and vowel are connected normally, so we pronounce it as the ordinary a. If the a comes at the later places, we pronounce it as a. That's the Sri Lankan version, the Sri Lankan way of pronunciation. So that's why you see Namo Tassa, not Namo Tassa, when the Sri Lankans pronounce. Then we also had a discussion about the different sounds, like cha in Sri Lankan or international Pāļi is pronounced as sa in Myanmar, but actually the articulation is the same. They have the same articulation because.
Sorry, Bhante. I think there is some noise in your background, Bhante.
Yes. Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay, so normally the cha should be pronounced by the tongue, the middle part of the tongue touching the upper palate. So that the same articulation is used by the Myanmar people, but pronouncing it having a different sound. Like instead of cha, they pronounce sa. So it's the same articulation, but a difference in the sound. Same way the ta, the dental sound, we feel it as a lingual sound, but actually they also pronounce it dentally, like ta for the normal international Pāļi, but with a slight difference in the way of articulation, they pronounce it as ta. But actually it's a dental sound for them. But and also we have this kind of differences we can see, and also there was a difference in I think at the end of the lecture, after the connection was lost, when I checked the where we stopped, I heard one sister was telling about the pronunciation of Buddha. Also, there is also a difference in Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Like, sorry, we like normally we pronounce Buddha, but in Myanmar pronunciation you hear it as Buddha. Right? So what has happened, this also we can have another example is like we take it ending in vowel a, like Sacha, they pronounce it as Tissa. So this is because this, if I explain this first one, because this R sound is followed by a consonant. So when it is followed by a if you write it in Myanmar letters, that they have the consonant vowel normally with the E sound. When there's a consonant with a vowel, R vowel, that R is pronounced as normally E. So that's why, because of this following consonant, there are changes into E. The sound changes into E. Then this ta we hear is because of this sa. Original sa in international Pāli is heard as also it is heard as like Sri Lankan sa is pronounced. We hear it. It's pronounced as ta by Myanmar. So, but the same articulation. Then because of this change, when they pronounce sacha, the sa is heard as ta, then a become e because of the following consonant. The same way, u consonant followed by a vowel followed by a consonant. Consonant means double consonant actually, not a single consonant. If followed by a double consonant, what happened? The sound of the vowel changes in the Myanmar pronunciation. That's why u and double consonant d, ddh, are become au, Buddha, they pronounce. So likewise, if the vowel is followed by a especially this doesn't apply to e vowel because r changes into e, and e there is no place for the e to change. So likewise, e changes into a. If there's e, it changes into a. So likewise, if there is a vowel following double consonants following a vowel, the nature of the vowel changes in Myanmar pronunciation. So I think one sister asked this about this question. So that is the experience that I have, because in their pronunciation, if you look into the R plus, I don't have the Myanmar consonants. If you pronounce like in Myanmar consonants, R and this consonant like this, eng. So you write it R and ngate, R and ngate. So in Myanmar, so they don't pronounce this ang, they pronounce ing, right? Ang become ing in their pronunciation. If you write this in Myanmar consonants, the R vowel and the na vowel and the upper one, so they pronounce it as in. So this change in their own language has influenced the Pāli reading also. So because ang is pronounced as ing, so what happens, R vowel following a consonant, what happens, the R changes into E. Ing, because ing is because of na, but they will pronounce it like this. But since the following consonant will remain as it is, but the change of R into E is because of the following double consonant. So likewise, so this change in their own language has occurred, has influenced their Pāli reading. If you look into the Myanmar alphabet, if you look at the Myanmar for beginners, Burmese for beginners, like these consonants, like they have different pronunciation. R plus ing and u plus ing, and if you pronounce e plus ing, right? So they have different ways of pronouncing these vowels. So that pronunciation of their own language has influenced the Pāli reading. And then when we go into Thai, we find the ka is pronounced as ga, and ga is pronounced as ka normally. So instead of sangadi sesa, they call sankati sesa. And if they want to say kevali, they call it gevali, for example. So likewise, they have changes in Thai. When I was in Thai, they were talking, the international monks were telling that these differences can be observed in their Thai pronunciation. And then I think Pāļi asked, and also Dr. Ryan last time asked a question about the pronunciation that you hear from my sound, like Brahma, you hear a ka sound. You hear a ka sound when I'm pronouncing. So also I remembered when the Seale, actually I explained it when the Seale asked the question, I remember the point on this matter, because this ha, according to the Rupa Siddhi, normally ha is a we call gut, but if the ha is followed by nasal of the vowels and some consonants, a consonant, ya and wa, if I remember. So when these are followed, the ha is pronounced from the chest, they say. So there's a different articulation of ha. There are two different articulations of ha. So maybe that is also a reason why when we guttural pronunciation, we pronounce it Brahma, right? But when it comes to the natural pronunciation, it comes from the chest, according to the Rupa Siddhi. Ha, the articulation of ha changes from the guttural to from the throat to the chest. So maybe that is also a reason that when we pronounce Brahma, you hear some kind of ka sound, because you cannot avoid even though it's said as the chest, you cannot avoid, to my understanding, you cannot avoid the throat, the guttural element. Every consonant, the guttural element cannot be prevented because our vocal cords are in the gutter. So therefore, we still hear a certain guttural sound. At the same time, the chest is also getting involved. So maybe that is also a reason when I'm not saying that my pronunciation is 100% correct, but when we pronounce like Paharati, I think you don't hear a ka sound here when I pronounce Paharati, for instance. So this is in the Rupa Siddhi, or it's Tika, I forgot. I couldn't check I didn't have time to check the reference, sorry for that. I'll send you the reference after the class of finding a Rupa Siddhi. This edge of guttural edge, the guttural edge, we find for example, Paharati, right? So when we have Paharati, you can hear Paharati. The ha sound is from the gutter. But when it is connected with a consonant, nasal consonant, or ya and wa, it comes different. Gaiha, 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 something like that. So maybe that is the reason that the element is some sort of a different pronunciation can be heard. I'm not sure about that. But I remember that there is a difference in the pronunciation. Then the Seale asks, after explaining that, I will come to the discussion. Seale asks, Brahma is, in Myanmar, they pronounce it as Brahma, right? As Brahma. So this one, because in Sri Lanka, we always pronounce it as Brahma, but in Brahma, this one is Brahma, this. In Myanmar pronunciation, we have Brahma, right? Brahma. So that is like the Pāļi. I'm not sure what is the reason about that, but the Pāļi made this Sayadaw, he gave the Brahma in the first place, and then what happens? He in his manuscripts, original manuscript, I have seen it how he has changed. There's a book for all the declinations, like in Myanmar, Sri Lankans also have a complete book of declinations. So in that book he cut this part, he in his book, he cut this by his letters, by his handwriting, and then he wrote it like Brahma. So earlier he also made the students to study like this, but then he somehow understood this is wrong, or this was not accurate. So then he changed into H. But in Myanmar, you find Brahma, like Brahma. Maybe that's why. So according to the Parliament Sayadaw, M comes before Ha, Brahma, not as Brahma. Yeah, if you have any questions on this.
So Bhante.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. So I think this one, the ma comes before the ha is also because of Myanmar alphabet. So if we have the ha plus ma, because they don't have a here, according to Myanmar alphabet.
You mean this one? Ha plus
Yes.
ma, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this they cannot combine together according to Myanmar alphabet.
Really? Is it?
Yes, you cannot plus yes, but if it's ma plus ha is ma and ha to, it become the Myanmar alphabet is like a ma and ha to. It is.
You are telling that they cannot write this combination?
If only half ha and plus ma, I think they cannot.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Have you checked with any shadow about this?
Because for my own experience, because I read many Myanmar like this book, if it's ma plus ha, then it becomes like a ma plus ha to. You know the ha to? Ha to is you down and put
right.
the left
Hato,
side.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, left side, yeah.
So I think that is the main reason.
Okay. I'll also ask from my friend about this matter and what is the difference. This one, because he's Sri Lankan, right? He will know the difference.
Yeah.
I'll go through him and ask question. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Yes, Dr. Ryan, you were asking.
Yes, Bhante, it is like a different one because I also hear you pronounce them, and I also find it a little bit strange. I also want to know why. So how do you pronounce the word self again in Pali? Self.
Which word?
Hello. The English word is self, Bhante. It's because I don't want to pronounce my name myself, because if I pronounce it, then I think it's going to be different. Okay, so
you mean this word?
Yes, but in Pali, the Pali word for that English word.
Atta. Is this?
Yes, so you pronounce it as something like atta.
Atta.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then so how do you pronounce the word meaning? A-T-T-H-A.
This one, right?
Yeah, so two words.
We pronounce it atta. We pronounce atta.
And then the other one, the self is
atta.
So because what I hear is okay. So my pronunciation is going to be atta, the word self,
right,
and atta for the word's meaning. But it looks to me that you pronounce the word
we pronounce atta. Yeah.
Yes, so it's like the opposite. So the T in English you pronounce ta, but the TH you pronounce ta, something like that. Is that?
In Pali, our Sinhalese pronunciation, this is called atta. Atta is like non-aspirated. Atta. Here we pronounce this atta.
Oh, okay. So here
this one is the special vowel, which is called schwa sound. Atta. So this one we give a more emphasis. Atta. This one is atta. If you pronounce it like this one, atta. This is if you take without the long r, we call atta and atta.
Okay.
Atta and atta.
Yes, I see. So yeah, my focus is on the T and the TH.
No T.
Okay. T and TH. Okay.
Yes. So what I heard earlier from you is that when you have the T you pronounce as ta, and the TH you pronounce as ta. That's what I heard before.
Like in the Myanmar one, they pronounce the ta as ta. We pronounce ta. They pronounce as ta. So in Sinhalese, this is ta and this is ta. Ta and ta.
Okay. Yeah,
we pronounce.
I see. So it's different now. Yeah, pronounce it's different now. Okay, Bhante.
maybe,
Yeah.
sometimes,
yeah.
suddenly pronounce. And also in our pronunciation, like Sinhalese people, when they pronounce, we normally differentiate the ta and ta. Ta, we clearly differentiate. But we, in our normal pronunciation, we don't go for the aspirations. In our normal daily pronunciation, sometimes we pronounce the aspiration, sometimes we do not. And in our daily, like day-to-day pronunciation, we don't differentiate these two sounds, na and na, and la and la. We don't differentiate them. And also we in this not in Pāli has only sa, right? But in Sanskrit we have this one is la. We have this sha and we have this sha. So these two also in Sinhalese, we in day-to-day life we don't differentiate. We just pronounce sha sha, na na. We pronounce as the lingual na, and both la we pronounce normally as lingual la. But sha we pronounce as the palatal sha. So when we speak, and also aspiration, sometimes we don't aspirate, sometimes we do aspirate. We don't care about that in our day-to-day normal speaking. But when we come to Kamavacha or proper teaching, we show this is how the letters are uttered.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
So Bhante,
Yeah, but normally
actually first time when you pronounce atta and atta, I also heard first you pronounce with aspirate sound. So but later you changed.
Yeah, that's why we like if we normally pronounce sometimes unaspirated letters we pronounce aspirated, some aspirated, unaspirated. So because the people know we don't go into that to catch whether it's aspirated or not aspirated, because we know the letters, we know the word. So that's why in normal speaking we don't focus much on that. Like the Myanmar people also, when they speak normal Pāli, they don't go into aspirated sounds. So
yeah, because I heard many foreigners when they pronounce the unaspirated, they pronounce it as an aspirated sound. So sometimes I say, why is that meaning? So the meaning will be different. Also, my another question is, Bhante, how about you pronounce the semi-vowel like ra?
Okay, you mean ra?
Yeah, because some people told me in Sri Lanka they pronounce ra is ra, like a retroflex ra.
Ra, yeah.
You say ra or ra, like we say raja, but some said we should pronounce raja.
This one is not very standardized. So when you go to Indian speakers, they speak like raja, like car. They ra is like a Spanish ra, little bit close to Spanish, like the very strong ra is there, like. But in Sri Lanka, sometimes we pronounce with the raja, sometimes we just pronounce raja. So this also ra and ra also has differences. The ra pronunciation of ra have differences according to the person. It's also not standardized in Sri Lanka.
I say because I saw some Chinese teacher, they say, in Sri Lanka they pronounce ra, like raja.
Yeah.
I said, really? I didn't hear like that. So they said that is correct pronunciation. So they say Myanmar and Thai, the pronunciation is not correct. I said, I didn't feel like that.
Okay. So this one is because in India the ra is very strong ra they have, but in Sri Lanka some people sometimes we also pronounce a strong ra, sometimes not. So this is also a letter that is not we have difficulties in explaining means not standardized. But we as you see that there's a huge difference for us, the native speakers. We don't see it much as different because we don't focus on that much. But according to the Pāli grammar, ra should touch very smoothly, not very strong ra. Ra, ya, ra, la, va. These have very not very strong touch of the articulation. It's just slightly touching. Isaka putta, they call. Isaka putta is it's a small, not very hard articulation is there. So therefore, it seems like they should be ra, like ra.
I see. Okay. How about when you recite the Gama Vaja, you recite the Raja or just a Raja, normal Raja?
That one depends on the person. We don't say it like it is a defect of the Vacha, Kama Vacha. We just pray like Rattang, Ratti, Ra, Ra. Sometimes you can hear the Ra. Sometimes we just say
I heard it's like a Ra. Like we say if it's a Radhana, maybe you was pronounce it Radhana, right?
Yeah, sometimes for some it's just Radhana.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
I have heard some monks are, one monk also suggests me on that, about this Ra. But it's not to my, and this one is sometimes confusing in our Kama Vacha. So these two letters when pronouncing, E and E. Sri Lankans have a problem here. Normally they pronounce, for example, Pahi Yissati. Normally a normal speaker, ordinary speaker, would pronounce it as Pahi Issati. This is how our pronunciation normally, because Ya and E are both from the same place of articulation, right? So instead of normal so this should be Yi. So Pahi Issati, we normally say Pahi Issati. Sometimes it's like if someone is learned, they would not do that, but we have to give a Pahi Yissati. Pahi Yissati. So this one also have a problem in some, even I myself had a problem in the beginning. We didn't focus much on this. So we sometimes if the Ya and E is closer, sometimes the Ya sound doesn't appear in us when we speak. That is also another problem, like something that we give attention while we are reciting Kama Vacha.
I see. Okay.
In daily
thank you,
speaking,
Bhante.
we don't focus at all. Right. So any questions on this? Okay, so we'll move to the next question. This one, in one of the Dhamma classes, the following point of discussion arose. Sama Sambuddha is one who is fully self-enlightened, practiced enlightenment. However, one participant argued that on the night of enlightenment, before becoming Buddha, the Bodhisattva attains Pubbenivasanussati Jnana, which allows him to recall a countless number of his past lives. This implies that he remembers lives in which he met with the Buddhas and hence heard of the Vipassana practice they are from. Therefore, in this life, he simply recalls the memory, which means technically he doesn't. Of the discussion mentioned that it is said that the Bodhisattva does not recall that piece of memory because of Dhamma-niyama, the law of Dhamma. Specifically, because he is destined to be a Sammasambuddha, which means he must discover the Vipassana practice on his own. That piece of memory is not available to him. Could you please confirm this with reference from the Pāļi literature? So this is the first question, and then there are some following questions, potential follow-up questions in the case that is needed because of Dhamma-niyama. Yeah, so this I have read this information in the commentary literature. Unfortunately, 1 week ago I checked find the reference which I read. Sorry for that. So if I find it, as soon as I find it, I'll share it with you all. It says that I read it 2-3 years ago when I was reading the Majjhima Nikaya, to my memory, it was Majjhima Nikaya and its commentary. So it says that when you recall the past lives and recall the past Buddhas, if you are a Putujana, if someone is a Putujana, but only the teaching, not the teachings that are related to Vipassana or Nibbana. It's the law. No, it's not only for Bodhisattva, it's for any being. For example, if you go into the Dhamma analysis, this would lead to an additional fundamental of the like the teachings. Now we know Pubbē Nivāsa and Anāgatansa can recall the objects of Pubbē Nivāsa and Anāgatansa can be past and future objects, right? So the commentary says future object means whatever has happened. The commentary says they can recall the Nibbana also, but the sub-commentary, the Mulatika, thoroughly rejects that idea and showing some information from the Patthana, and he concludes that except Nibbana, Nibbana cannot be recalled by Pubbē Nivāsa and Anāgatansa, though the commentary says it is possible. So he has an argument, and he gives solid information from the Patthana, very far away tika, that Nibbana is not an object of, because Buddha has in Patthana. So then, so past and future objects except Nibbana, but includes Maggapala. So it says that this Maggapala observation can be done. Pubbē Nivāsa is recalling your own past lives. Sometimes if the concentration is very strong, you may be able to recall the past life of others. So this has some information like some information says that if Arahanta is recalling the past lives of the one whom he met in the past lives, he'll be able to recall. And but also there's information about some monks recalling the past life, purely the past life of other beings, which they had not connected. So it is possible that you recall your own past life. If the samadhi is very strong, I think samadhi should be very strong for that. You will be able to recall the past life of other beings, and also the past of incidents, like for instance, what happened in this place, what happened 100 years ago in this place, something like that. He'll be able to recall such things, because one time ascetic was flying on the sky, and he saw some parts like some feathers in the sea, which was in the middle of the sea, and he knew it is impossible feathers of a crow could come to this far. Then he recalled, he found that this crow was staying on a dead elephant, and he kept on eating the meat, and he didn't give up that body. So eventually he came to the middle of the sea. So when the meat was finished, he tried to go back, and he couldn't find the land, and he got exhausted and he fell into the sea and died. So this also shows that they can recall the past life of others. And also there are incidences that you can recall the past life of inanimate things. These all fall into the Pubbē Nivāsa Jnana. So this Pubbē Nivāsa Jnana can recall Chitta Cetasika Rupa and also Maggapala, part of the Chitta Cetasikas. That is for the nobles only, future or past. The Maggapala can be recalled by nobles. And also a lower noble cannot recall a higher noble attainment. Putujana can never recall a noble attainment. That is for the nobles only. Pubbē Nivāsa of Tansa of Putujana, they can recall past and future mundane objects. But this, according to the commentarial explanation, this excludes, except the teachings related to Nibbana and Vipassana. So these are extra information that we have to add because of the commentarial information, which was mentioned about an incident about the past life. The commentary says he can remember only the teachings that were related to the like dana, sila, and so forth, not teachings related to the Nibbata or the Nibbana given by that past Buddha. So this was for the, it's not only for the four, Bodhisattva, when he recalled the past lives, he remembered the past Buddhas, he saw the past Buddhas, but he could not recall the teachings given by them or the teachings practiced by him related to the Nibbana or Vipassana. So that is the Dhamma Niyama according to the Theravada tradition. So if I conclude there are a few follow-up options, then we can come to the discussion. The Pubbe Niwa is powerful, meaning that there is no obstacle whatsoever preventing him from recalling any minute detail regarding his past life. Then how can we resolve this issue and make a compromise? So I think that its answer is clear according to the teachings. According to the literature, the Dhamma Niyama is Putujana is unable to recall the teachings related to Vipassana and Nibbana. If so, then this not remembrance of the Vipassana practice would apply not only for Bodhisattva but also to everyone else. Yes, this is the answer. It applies to everyone else. Otherwise, some beings who attains Pubbe Nivasanasi could also recall past memories, and there's no about how the practice and wouldn't need to listen to Buddha Dhamma teachings from the Buddha or from his disciple. Yes, that no Putujana is able to recall. Even not only the teachings, except the teachings and practice also. That your own practice is not able to recall by himself. Before I go to the next question, you can have this question.
Sorry, Bhante. What is the meaning of agatangsa, Bhante?
Is you can recall the future. Is the anagatangsa jnana.
Recall the future, Bhante.
Yeah, recall, not recalling. You how do you call it? You see the future.
See the future. Okay. So that is included in. So it's grouped in Pubbe Niwasa Jnana, Bhante.
No. Pubbe Niwasa is past. Anagatangsa is future.
Oh, so in the term of 5 abhinya, so where is the anagatangsa jnana is grouped?
It comes under Dibba Chakku. Dibba Chakku has 2 additional wisdoms, anagatangsa and yata kammupaga. Because there are 7 abhinyas according to that, anagatangsa and yata kammupaga. This anagatangsa and yata kammupaga, anagatangsa is seeing the future, and yata kammupaga is knowing the karma of a being who is born. So, for that, a person who has Dibba Chakku can automatically gain these 2 wisdoms without any preliminary practice. So, they are included in Dibba Chakku. They are included in Dibba Chakku. Dibba Chakku is sometimes Dibba Chakku. Now, if you talk about the 5-fold Vipassana, Abhinyana, Anagatangsa, Dibba Chakku, all are included in Anagatangsa and Yata Kammupaga, all are included in Dibba Chakku. According to that, Dibba Chakku can know the faraway objects, subtle objects. Dibba Chakku can know the karma of other beings, why they are born, and why they are experiencing such difficulties, and also what is going to happen in the future lives. He should be seeing the possibilities. Then if something is fixed, he will see the fixed nature. But otherwise he would see if it is not fixed, most of the things are not fixed. They will see if they do this, they will happen. If they do this, they will get these results. Then the next thing is, they will see the future and of the animate and inanimate things, the possible which can happen. That is the when we call the 5-fold abhinyana, all are included in Dibba Chakku. But when we call 7-fold abhinyana, Dibba Chakku, only mere Dibba Chakku is seeing objects. Like you see the divine realm, that is Dibba Chakku. Then you recall a being, divine being, why he is born in such a level, such a destination. He recalls his karma, that is called Yata Kammupaga. then what is his possible destinations in the future, if you want to recall, that is Anagatansa. So then they divide the scope. Then there's another special Abhignana which is called Chutupapata. That is, Chutupapata is a combination of these Dibba Chakku, Anagatansa, and Anagatansa and Yathakamopaka. Buddhas die and born within 7 days. It's normally says within 7 days. How beings are die and born. That's how he recalled in the Bodhi, near the Bodhi tree. Within 7 days to the past and 7 days to the future, how beings die and born due to various karmas. So when you recall such a thing, this is called Chutupapata Jnana. But it is another form of Dibba Chakku. It's not an extra wisdom. Then also the Iddhivida, the psychic power, is twofold according to the Patisambhida Magga. It becomes threefold. We have Iddhivida Jnana, and also we have something called Manomaya Iddhi. Manomaya Iddhi means doing the psychic powers is one. You can create a similar body like yours. That is called Manomaya Iddhi. It's like you take out something out of a case, so you create a similar body like your own, like the Chullapantaka did, like the Buddha did during the twin miracles. Then there's another psychic ability called Vikubbana. Vikubbana means you change your transform Naga, you change yourself into a Brahma, and that Vikubbana idea is twofold. You create your own self, or you create another form outside. Like you create an elephant outside. You are still there, but you create an elephant outside. You create a mountain outside. You create an army outside yourself, a different form. Either you change yourself into a different form, or you create a different form outside, just to showing. That is called Vikubbana Iddhi. Manomaya Iddhi is you create a similar form like you. And the remaining all psychic powers are called Iddhivida in that explanation. But in the fivefold explanation, all those abilities like creating your own self, creating a different form, and flying and everything comes into Iddhivida. And finally, out of that change of the form, like monks are not allowed to do one psychic ability, that is Vikubbana Iddhi. They can fly, they can show their abilities to lay people even, but they are not allowed to do the Vikubbana Iddhi of transforming your own self into another. They can create an elephant outside themselves, but they cannot be an elephant. It is prohibited. It is prohibited, and it's a dukkata offense. I think because it can lead to a lot of confusion, and it can lead for people may misunderstand, people may disrespect the person, and so forth. So this is prohibited to for the monks. But it says the literature has information. Buddha once said he sometimes go into faraway districts. So the commentary says it is not only the faraway district in this world. Sometimes he goes to other universe, other world cycles, and then he preaches Dhamma in the appearance of the king of that region. The commentary extends this. Buddha says he goes to faraway districts and teach Dhamma. So the commentators say he goes and he changes himself into a king. So he has done the Vikubbana Iddhi, but he has prohibited it for Savakas. Because sometimes the Buddhas doesn't follow the rules. In some cases, very rare cases, he doesn't follow the rules that he has ordered for his disciples. So then he has changed himself to a king. Then when he preaches, before that king comes, the commentary says, when the Buddha teaches very basic, but not the Vipassana teaching, the very basic. Then when the real king comes and teaches, the people see a difference of the teaching. And then they get to know, they assume that the person who first came should be a divine being, not a person in this world. So they do the merits, because he teaches about doing merits, abstaining from evil and all these normal things, like karma vipaka and all. So then they follow his doctrine, and some would make a wish to be born in the place that the previous divine, like the one who gave the discourse, to born in that place. So the commentators say that is the reason why a being comes to this universe, this world cycle from an outside world, where a Buddha appears, and that would is the first entrance. Like, that is one reason for them to be born in this world cycle, world system, and one day to get the attainment. Yeah. So yeah, these are the things that are related to Abhignana.
Okay, Bhante. Thank you so much, Bhante, for the detailed explanation, Bhante. Bhante, I have another question. So about like we have seen in Sutta that there are some sawakas that attain the Maggaphala very swiftly, Bhante. So how is
Yeah.
how is technically that can happen, Bhante? Because before I get this information about the Dhamma Niyama, they prohibit the Pubbeniwasa to see the past vipassana practice. I assume that maybe when the Buddha preached, they quickly recollect the past vipassana practice that they have do. But since this is not correct, so how is it technically can happen, Bhante?
It's like for that we have to come into the understanding of vipassana. That is the most important. So vipassana is normally is the understanding about the realities and the life of the world and so forth. So normally this would also take some time if I go to explain this. It's like we, according to the Theravadian tradition of the Theravadians, vipassana is something that we do basically on contemplation, which is not done these days. If you go into Visuddhi Magga, Patisambhida Magga, and all the suttas, Buddha has asked us to do the contemplation. But these days, we don't do the vipassana in a contemplation manner. We observe the objects that come to us, the present objects, right? So whatever the method you use, as long as you contemplate on the impermanent suffering and non-selfness, so that is called vipassana. So in the contemplative method that was used in the ancient books like Visuddhi Magga, and the tradition has followed that. For many example, you contemplate the chakku is impermanent, sakku is suffering, and also so you can sometimes extend your contemplation like with similes and so forth. Like a mirror is not a person, so likewise the chakku, which is like a mirror, cannot be a person. So likewise the hardness is in a tree is not a person, being. So likewise, the hardness in the body is also cannot be called a being. So likewise, you lead a contemplation with words, reciting or contemplating by mind. So when you recite the words, it's not just the recitation of words. At that time, you penetrate into the ultimate reality. That is the difference. So that's why it's an ultimate contemplation. In the beginning, you will follow the words, but when your concentration grows and the wisdom grows, increases, you will start, when the word is recited, you are penetrating into the reality. That's it. You are penetrating into the reality. So for that, we have to understand what are the realities, what is chakku, what is sota, and so forth. First, you have to do the contemplation. For that, the teachers have given instructions. Look into these realities in these manners. So they have given 4 modes of looking into the reality. Lakkana, Rasa, Paccupatthana, and Padattana. Then, so what happens when, with the words, using the words, you can penetrate into the reality. So what happens now? The Buddha is teaching the Dhamma. So listening to these words, some wise beings who have practiced in past lives, who have that parami ability, because of their past wisdom, they are able to listen into this short discourse, listen to the word, they are able to penetrate into the realities very quickly. So at that moment, with the teachings, when the teachings are given, contemplating on the teachings, he goes into contemplate the realities with the teachings. With the teaching, he goes into contemplate the realities. So that is why when they are listening, they are having a vipassana practice on that moment. So this normally this question comes to many students or the followers, because they consider vipassana is just observing the object that comes to you spontaneously. So this is a technique that has been adapted from the main technique of contemplation. So Mahasi Sayadaw and Mogok Sayadaw and many have adapted this method, but that is not the only original vipassana practice. But it's not, it doesn't say that what the technique is wrong. That's correct, 100% correct. But it is something which has been adapted from the main technique. The main technique is you have to contemplate using the words. So it's like in a simple difference is you in present day Vipassana, we don't choose the object. We contemplate on an object which comes to you. But in the ancient method, which was followed by the tradition for 1,000 years, you select which object you are contemplating. You select the which object you are contemplating. Whatever which is prominent to you, you can start from there. Chakku, Sota, Gana, Jiva. I know I will go from Chakku, then to Sota, then to Gana, then to Jiva, Kaya, Mana, and then to Rupa, Saddha, Gandha. Whatever order you can decide. But in present day, you are not deciding on it. So Mahasi Sayadaw, in his book about Vipassana practice, has given this information, and he says why he has adapted this technique. He says when we are choosing, because this text doesn't say about a present moment object at all. So whatever you like, you can contemplate. So what the teacher Mahasi Sayadaw is saying, why he adapted this present moment technique, like you are observing whatever object it comes, it makes your mind to occupy more and more. It's personally, I think it's not a very good argument, but practically for many yogis, it has proven to be a argument, because when you are contemplating Chakku and when you go to the Sota with force, like intention, deliberately, there can be some kind of a time gap. Sometimes there can be wandering and all, but it doesn't happen when your concentration is strong. You just keep on start contemplating according to the order. There will be no problem. But when you are focusing on the object which manifests in you, like which becomes prominent, so there is uninterrupted mindfulness. So Sayadaw says that is why we don't go into the deliberate contemplation, but we go into the spontaneous contemplation, whichever comes to you spontaneously, which arises instantly. So that is to maintain the sati. So therefore, to understand that how beings got enlightened with a short discourse, listening to a Dhamma, we have to change the approach, that how we look into Vipassana. So if you consider Vipassana is focusing on the present moment objects and observing the object which comes to your mind, you cannot do it while listening to a Dhamma talk, because only thing you can focus is the sound, and you'll not be able to go into the meaning if you strictly follow. So, but the ancient meditation technique is you use the words, and with the words you are penetrating into the reality. It's like when you do the Kesa, Asubha Bhavana. In the first you recite Kesa. It's still a concept, but the similar thing happens. Kesa. But in the end you go Panyati Samatikkamana, means you overcome the concept, and then without saying the word, you are able to focus on the. In the beginning, you are. Sometimes you may see a picture, sometimes you may see a word, sometimes you may see a letter, something like that. But when the concentration is strong and wisdom is powerful, when you say Kesa, your mind directly goes to the Kesa, and Kesa becomes very vivid. Hair becomes very vivid to you. The same way, Buddhanusati was the same thing. In the beginning, you will see the words of Arahant, letters. But then later, when your mind is very sharp, this is called overcoming the concept. So in Vipassana practice also, when you contemplate on words, Chakku is impermanent, Sota is impermanent, Gana is impermanent, suffering, and so on. In the beginning, you recall the words, but later, when your mind is stronger, you'll able to focus on the I, the ultimate nature of the I, and its impermanence. So likewise, you are penetrating into the reality through the words. So that ability is needed in Vipassana contemplation. So when the Buddha is teaching, the same thing we recite, you go into the deep meaning, and during that listening, the Vipassana is still happening. So that's why in the Anguttara Nikaya, Panchaka Nipata, you can see a sutta called Vimuttayatana Sutta. Vimuttayatana, I'll write it here. Sutta, Buddha mentioned about 5 ways of attaining. So one is listening to Dhamma, one is teaching Dhamma, because when you are teaching also you can contemplate on what you say, the words. But words means you're going to the ultimate realities, penetrate. Then reciting the Dhamma, you recite the teaching that you have studied, contemplating the Dhamma, still also this is just contemplating on the words, suttas that you have studied. And then studying a meditation subject. When you study a samatha meditation subject, the realities, the technique becomes very clear. A lot of piti can arise, And based on that, using your wisdom, you'll be able to understand the realities. It's not the practicing of the technique, it's the understanding the technique can also lead for your vipassana practice. There's nothing to say you practice samatha and go into the vipassana, because when you go into vipassana, according to the Theravada tradition, it's always a deliberate contemplation is what has been mentioned using the words. So when you come with that approach, you can understand how a being could do vipassana while Buddha is preaching the Dhamma.
Okay, Bhante. Bhante, so does it mean that like they can see at that time, they can spontaneously see the ultimate reality? So
Yes,
their past practice is supporting them to see
exactly.
Okay, Bhante.
It's a support. It's giving only a support. You recall that when the Buddha is mentioning about the 4 gate elements, something like that, you get because of your past practice, strangely you understand the meaning and you get familiar. Patavi means this, and he is able to penetrate into the realities while he's teaching with the teachings.
Okay, Bhante. Because currently, like we have to do it by the way of 4-element meditation, for example, like Bhante. But at that time, they can see it directly, spontaneously.
Yes, with the words. When he listens to the words, yeah.
Okay, Bhante. So like when the Buddha, for example, for example, the Bhante Asaji is preaching to the Bhante Sariputta the first time, Bhante. So at that moment, the Bhante Sariputta directly see the ultimate reality. So what he see is the ultimate reality of the sound, for example, the sound of the teaching?
No, that's why I said it's not the ultimate reality of sound. He's contemplating on the meaning of the teachings. For example, when the word is uttered, he goes to, now when a word, there are a few steps of a word. For example, when we give a word, right? For example, we have with the listening to the word is a panyati, right? It's a nama panyati. Word is a nama panyati. Then with listening to the word, right? We can, if a person is wise enough, you go to the meaning of the word. There are 2 types of meaning. One meaning is atta panyati. Then, if you go further, we come to the ultimate meaning. That is Paramatma. For example, if I give a normal explanation on this, if you take the Purisa is a word, right? It's a Nam Panyati. Then the meaning of the Purisa is, it's like he has a body, he has a certain figure aggregates. Right? So if you take the word Chitta is a word. This middle phrase, like when you want the Chitta, sometimes they get the meaning of the Chitta. It's a conceptual meaning if you have not understood the Chitta clearly. If someone has not understood the hardness clearly, he imagines this should be the hardness. He imagines this should be hardness. But if you really understand what is hardness or Chitta, he understands the reality of Chitta, the ultimate reality, ultimate Chitta reality. So listening to a word, a person should be capable into going into this last stage, right? For the last stage. So that is what, when the Buddha Asaji was preaching Ye Dhamma Hetu Pabhava, it was not just the Dhamma, he was contemplating about whatever Dhamma which are conditioned realities. So it was the Chitta, Chetasika, Rupa, collectively, whatever has come with conditioned reality, the life and everything. Tesang Hetu Tathagato Ahu. So then he contemplates on the reasons. So if someone asks the question, how just with one word he understands such a deep meaning, how could he penetrate into the Chitta or understand the Chitta? That is unexplainable because he get the support of the past practice. That is a different case. That is something unexplainable. That is why Buddha divided beings as Uggatitanya, Vipatitanya, and Neyya. Some are very swift because of their past practice. Some need to be actually have a long discourse. For some, it need to be done repeatedly as a practitioner. again and again. Like, so it depends on the person's ability, past practice. So Buddha knows when he's preaching to someone, he knows his capacity. So that's why when he preached to Bahya Daruchi area, asked for Dhamma, he gave a very short Dhamma talk. For some, like people like Yasa, he had to give a very long Dhamma talk, like Samukkansika Desana, starting from the beginning for long time, very detailed, because he was a Vipatitanya. Uggaditanya, Vahya was Uggaditanya. Very strict, very short Dhamma talk was enough. For some, it has to be very detailed about the Four Noble Truths. During that course, he's able to understand. But for some, like Maggavihārī, not the female, the Brahman, he had a debate with the Buddha, and in the end, he was convinced by the Buddha. He got convinced, and he asked, "Please, Bhante, please preach me some Dhamma." Then Buddha didn't say. He said, "When I preach, you will not be able to understand this." Then he was kept on begging, asking to preach the Dhamma. He said, "No. If you want to learn the Dhamma, go to good friends, practice." That's what the final instruction he gave. Go to the good teachers, good friends, and learn the Dhamma, practice. So Buddha has given different instructions based on the temperament of the person. So when the Buddha is teaching a Dhamma, he is teaching the words, we listen to the word, sounds, to the sound, we go to the meaning of the word, and then we go penetrate into the realities. So this is the skill, this is the bridge of Vipassana. This part, which I'm marking in the red color, is the bridge. So when someone recites a sutta, when someone recites a gatha, whether he's just reciting or whether he's doing it with the Vipassana contemplation matters, his ability to penetrate into the reality through a word. So this ability has to be developed. This ability has to be developed. So if someone has that capacity, listen to the Dhamma, reciting the chanting the Dhamma, he'll be able to do the Vipassana using the words, because he's not contemplating on the words, he's contemplating the realities. These words refer. What these words refer to, he's contemplating on them. So then, according to the Vimuttayatana Sutta, while reciting, while contemplating, while listening, while teaching, he's able to penetrate and eradicate the defilements.
Okay, Bhante. So it means like something like, for example, the person, the swift person, he heard the word Purisa, and then he know the 5 aggregates. So at that moment, he contemplate the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, and Vijnana.
Something like that.
So he contemplate all the Rupa and Citta, Cetasika, like that, Bhante?
Not all, generally. Then your question has to be extended. What is the object of Vipassana? I think if I go into that, it will be a very long explanation.
Okay,
so generally, the person with just knowing the word Purisa will not be able to go into 5 aggregates. In the beginning, he has to learn, has to get the teachings related to Vipassana. Some like that the Bahya get, Ditte Mattang, Sute Sutta, and so forth. Then when he get into the practice, when he understand the technique, like technique means what is the reality, then at that time, if he hear the Purisa word, he'll be able to penetrate in the 5 aggregates. Because the example you took was just a conventional example. So if someone is a Uggaditanya, has heard the word Purisa many times in his life, he is not able to penetrate into it. But first he has to listen to Dhammas related to Kanda, Ayatana, Dhatu, or instructions related to practice, something like that. Then what happens, based on this instruction, he comes into the track. He crosses this bridge. After he crossed the bridge, based on the teachings related to Vipassana, then whatever word he hears, he'll be able to penetrate into the ultimate realities.
Okay, Bhante.
Because what I said was, your example was just Purisa, right? So then
yes.
Someone can misunderstand how he can do it. First, he has to study, listen to teachings related to Citta, Cetasika, Rupa, Kanda, Ayatana. Then he'll shift. He'll be able to overcome the Panyati and come into realities. Then whatever word he hears, he'll be able to put it into the reality.
Okay, Bhante. And then so that for the person that is kind of swift, like he know the meaning of the Purisa is like spontaneously is because the support of the past practice. Right,
yes,
Bhante?
exactly.
Okay, Bhante. It's very clear right now, Bhante. Very amazing. Thank you so much, Bhante.
Hi, Bhante.
Hello, Dr.
Yes, so I since we go back to the original question, so so I understand that, let's say, so we say that we are a Buddhist in the Theravada tradition. So we have to accept certain things, which you often say fundamental. So there are some certain things we have to accept, maybe sometime without questioning. Because, so for example, like the 5 niyama, we have to accept those 5 niyama. So the question, so the problem now is we trying to understand how and to make sense of them. So for example, in this case, so we know that the Bodhisattva could not recall his past memory regarding the Vipassana practice because of the Dhamma niyama. So, but let's say we try to make sense of this. So does that mean that when he recall his past life, at some life he meets the Buddha, then of course, let's see, he listened to the Buddha's Dhamma talk. So maybe in that Dhamma talk, the Buddha said something not related to Vipassana and something related to Vipassana. So does that mean that the Dhamma niyama is going to do its work to make his memory becomes reasonable, sensible, rational? That means he accepted. Or does that mean that when he recall his past life, he sees something like there is some missing something, I cannot see it? So how would that play out, Bhante?
Oh yeah, it's I think that is how it should happen. He remembers. It's like he, as you said now, when he listened to a Dhamma talk, there will be some information missing in that. That's what commentary says. He remembers only the part related to the vata means normal Dhamma, like Sila Samadhi, not related to the person. It will be blackout for him. Then a question can come as that what happens to him as a, after listening to him, he got transformed, his wisdom, everything got elevated, he got certain understandings, and all these understandings he'll not be able to recall. It's like there will be some missing thing in him. That's personally what I feel like. There is like he'll able to recall everything, but there is something missing. I don't know whether he understands it as something missing, or just he's able to recall only those that are related to the ordinary wisdom, or maybe he will feel that something is missing. Like I'm not recalling everything. Yes, there should be some kind of missing everything. I'll not be able to
right. Yes, for example,
very deeply.
Yes. So for example, let's say during the Dhamma talk, for example, the past Buddha said that the process of getting elaboration is going through the 7 stages of purification. So then he heard number 7, but then he keep recalling. Then he can only see only 2, the first 2. The remaining 5, the last 5, he couldn't see it. But that's how it should play out.
Yes. Right, something like that. Yeah. Nibbana. Any teachings related to Nibbana?
I see.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Yeah, and it would be great if you please look for the reference.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, right. I'll try to find, because I spent I think 1 or 2 hours searching for the reference, but I couldn't get it. I was really a little bit frustrated also. As soon as I find, I'll share the reference with you.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, so shall we go to the next question, and we can conclude like with this. Lifespan dispensation is how long the Buddha's dispensation remains. That is basically how long the sasana would remain, how long the bhikkhu lineage will remain. That is the most prominent thing. Bhikkhu lineage is the lifeblood of the sasana. So when the Bhikkhu lineage is cut off, few years, centuries, but it will be cut off completely. Very soon it will be cut off. For our Gautama Buddha, according to his wish, his dispensation, other Buddhas, their dispensation ended right after the Parinibbana. I don't think it's based on his wish. I think he may have made a wish. I have heard some teachers saying that he made such a wish, adhitthana, determination. But that also, I think he made such a, if he made such a determination, that would be based on the conditions that he observed. He might have known that, otherwise he would have wished for 10,000 years, right? He would have wished for it to last for long. It's not because of his wish that the sasana is 5,000 years. It's also not confirmed whether how long it would last, but normally the tradition says it's 5,000 years. So that is, I think, based on the conditions that he saw it cannot go beyond 5,000 in the situation. So then, for some Buddhas, the dispensation ended right after the Parinibbana. Yes, for some it ended up right after the Parinibbana. Does it mean that the end of the, for example, the 7 last Buddhas, including our Buddha, Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabuhu, these 3 Buddhas, we don't have much information about the previous Buddha, but we can apply with this answer, like there is a rule for that. So with that, we can able to guess the meaning, guess the answer. For some Buddhas, their dispensation ended right after the Parinibbana. So Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabu, after their Parinibbana, not right after their Parinibbana actually, after 1 generation from their Parinibbana. After 1 generation from their Parinibbana. For instance, as I remember, Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabu. Sikhi Buddha lived for 70,000 years. According to the tradition, 70,000 years. The last disciple of his, for example, he was a young disciple. Buddha was old, the disciple was young. So it's like a father and son combination. So after the Buddha passed away, those disciples could last for another generation, for roughly another 70,000. After that, the sasana is ended. Why is that? Because there was no Vinaya in there. There was no Vinaya rules. The commentary says because people had less faults, so they didn't do faults. So Buddha didn't have to promulgate Vinaya rules. That was the reason. So, and also he didn't show a method of ordaining. There was no such a rule. So what happens? In simple terms, it seems like Savakas couldn't ordain the monks. That was the simple answer. Savakas didn't have a technique to ordain the monks. It seems all were ordained by the Buddha. So what happens after their disciples, after the Buddha's disciples, Sammukha Savaka, all the Sammukha Savaka passed away, monks' lineage will be cut off. Monks' lineage will be cut off. And also, Buddha mentioned in the Parajika Pāḷi, in the beginning, Sariputta asked the question, why some dispensations are long and why some were short. He could remember them. He could recall that dispensations were long and short, but he couldn't recall the reasons. So even that also showed that even Sariputta couldn't recall why it happened. He saw in his Pubbeniwasa, he could see that Buddha, some dispensation ended soon and some lasted for long. But what was the reason? He was unable to know. So he asked this question from the Buddha. So Buddha mentioned one reason is not promulgating Vinaya. Another reason is not preaching Dhamma in detail. So those Buddhas didn't have to preach Dhamma in detail like our Buddha and continuously because the beings were less defiled. So a short Dhamma talk, easy, simple, like basic Dhamma talks related to Nibbana, Vipassana was enough for them to attain that. So they didn't preach Dhamma in detail and they didn't promulgate the Vinaya. So what happens? Dhamma was not preached in extensive detail, but it had all the Sutta, Geya, Dhamma was there, not in detail like our Buddha, and also no Vinaya. So what happens after the Buddha's disciples pass away? The Buddha's direct disciples pass away after 1 generation of his Parinibbana, from his Parinibbana. The monk lineage was cut off. So when the monk's lineage is not continuing, sasana is not going to last. That is the truth. But for the Kassapa, Kakusanda, Konagamana, Kassapa, and Gotama, the dispensations lasted for many generations after their Parinibbana, because they promulgated Vinaya and they explain the Dhamma in details. You can see this if you go to the Parajika Pāḷi, the first part, the Parinibbana, Sariputta is asking for rules to promulgate, asking why was that, and he in the end he knew promulgating Vinaya would make the Sasana long. Then the Sariputta asked, please make the rules. Then Buddha said, wait till the time comes. It will come, but wait, he said. So does it mean at the end of dispensation nobody talks about Dhamma anymore? No, they do talk. They do talk, but the lay community will not protect the teachings as the monks do. That is obvious. Like for example, if you go to the history of the Sasana in Sri Lanka before the Fourth Council, there was a famine, there was a foreign invasion, and there was a internal rebellion. All three disasters came at the same time. Then what happens? There was a great danger after the Asoka's patronage, empire got demolished. Then, so what the monks had to do, some traveled to India and 60 monks stayed in the island. So it says that they preserved the Dhamma even without food, without considering about their lives. So they were fully sacrificed with that. So that's the one kind of benefit of having a Sangha Sasana. They are fully dedicated. Monks, nuns, Samaneras, Samanidis, Sikamanas are fully dedicated to preserve this Dhamma and to practice this Dhamma, and they will hold this Sasana. They are the ones who hold this Sasana. So therefore, as long as the Sangha Sasana remains, we can guarantee that the Sasana would preserve. And also, you can know in the Sri Lankan history, spread to Myanmar and Thailand, and it was preserved luckily. But when it was in Sri Lanka, the time I'm talking, in the 17th century, 17th to 18th century, there was a time that monks were not practicing Vinaya. There was lots of problem because internal political instability was there, the country. So what happens in the end, monks completely gave up their virtue, but still they kept their monkhood, their monk status. They kept their monk status. In the end, they gave up the Upasampada. They lived in the village, in the temples with their families, with their wives and children, but they were not monks. They abandoned the monkhood because they knew they cannot do it like that. But they protected the Sangika property, especially the books. So there's a thing that even a monk is not virtuous, fully virtuous or fully unvirtuous, still he preserves the Dhamma. That is something that monks do. I think you remember before the Fourth Council, one book was completely lost in Sri Lanka, the Mahanidesa. And it was memorized by a monk. Only one monk remained in the island, because after the monks from India came and after the monks from India all gathered and recited the Dhamma, there was one book missing. That was Nidesa Pāḷi. So the Theras ordered the young monk to study from that monk. But unfortunately, that monk was a Parajika monk. He was having relationship with the book. The young monk said, I'm not able to study Dhamma from such a monk, such a mean monk. Then the Mahatera said, no, that is the only hope, only option. There's no other way to preserve the Dhamma. It is more important. So Mahatera said, I will be there with you till the Dhamma is taught. So the young monk went to the unvirtuous monk, Parajika's monk temple, and the Mahatera was also with him. The monk was very talented. So he studied from him, like memorizing. On the last day, the story says he saw the woman under the bed, and then he said to the Mahatera after finishing the course, Bhante, even if you were there, if I saw this, I would not be able to study Dhamma. I will not surely study from this monk. In the end, he said, but luckily the process has finished. So even that monk was not virtuous. They had the responsibility. They kept the responsibility of preserving the Dhamma. I think sometimes you can see in certain monasteries, sometimes in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka also, monks are not that much into virtue, but still they study the Dhamma, still they preserve the Dhamma. So therefore, the monks' lineage is the main reason for the preserving the Dhamma. As long as the Dhamma is preserved, anyone can study the Dhamma and come into virtue by himself and practice. So the monk's lineage is the main reason for the prolongation of the sasana. No more new attainments from beings worlding to be noble arya. There can be noble beings. There can be noble beings, but even a putujana, a lay person, is a noble. He will not be able to maintain the sasana continuously, because lay life is a complicated life. Complicated means like it's a busy life full of responsibilities. They will not be able to fully dedicate themselves to preserve the sasana. So that's why the monk's lineage is very important. Noble people still practice and talk about the Dhamma, about worldings, will not understand. No. The noble people will be able to practice, and they will be able to teach, and they will also be able to make others attain. But attainment is something, the lasting of the sasana is a different thing. Your personal attainments can be happen with a lay person, as a lay person. That is a personal thing. But a monk may attain arahanthood, but sometimes he may not be able to maintain the sasana. For that, there is an extra activity for monks. Monks have two activities, their responsibilities, monks and nuns. They have to do their own practice, and also they have to give the teachings to their junior generation and make sure that his understanding will be preserved in his junior monk. So then the lineage will continue. So that is why there can be nobles, there can be noble lay people, but it is a different case. Attainment and the sasana, the long lasting of the sasana, is a different thing. So noble people discuss the Dhamma only between themselves. They can teach Dhamma to worldings. They will be able to explain to Dhamma. There will be Dhamma. Long lasting of the sasana is not just because of Dhamma talks or attainments. Mainly, it is because of preservation of the pariyatti. That is the main reason for the sasana to last long. So if the pariyatti is preserved, even the monks are not that virtuous, there can be someone who emerge, a very special being, study the Dhamma and adapt these teachings to himself, and he can establish or generate the energy of the sasana and continue it. So therefore, the main reason why the Buddha mentioned, Buddhas didn't preach Dhamma in detail, and they didn't promulgate the Vinaya. So the monks' lineage was cut off. When there is no monks, there is no preservation of Dhamma completely. So then the sasana would end very soon. And then to conclude the question answering, the short lifespan, according to our tradition, short lifespan of a Buddha is considered below 50,000. This includes the 50,000 also. Is 50,000. Sorry. The long lifespan is more than 50,000. So yeah, 50,000 and below, right? So yeah, 50. Sorry, is 50 below 50,000. Below 50,000. How about 50,000? I'm not able to say it exactly. I will go check it again. Whether 50,000 is considered as short or long. It says normally what I remember is more than 50 is long dispensation. Below if some Buddha lives for 50,000 years, I have to further check on it. So this is the Kakusanda Buddha for 40,000, Kodagamana 30, Kassapa 20, our Buddha is 100, and other Buddhas are a long lifespan. So their sasanas lasted for another generation. Actually, it lasted for another 70,000 years, but one generation. So length of a sasana, the long or shortness is decided. When you decide it based on the generations, our Buddha sasana, in that term, it's a long in terms of generation, long generation, many generations. The long lifespan Buddhas, just one generation after him. But in terms of the length, It differs according to the era.
Hi, Bhante.
Yes, Dr. Rai.
Yeah, so I don't understand. Then okay, so let's see. So during our Buddha's time, I mean, even before he was still a bodhisattva, he was not become a Buddha yet. There are a lot of noble people from all the way from the Buddha Kassapa time. They are noble people up there all the way in the Brahma's world. So that means they know the noble truth. They know the Four Noble Truths. So what prevents them from teaching other people? That's what I mean in terms of what I mean in the sense of dispensation here. Because there are noble people still there.
That one, yes, exactly. That one I'll not be able to answer actually. Yeah, that question also, I also have it as a question. Sorry for that, I'm going to be able, because why certain those noble beings could come and teach the Dhamma, right? So it's a question that I will not be able to answer. Because the possibility is now they can, because they know the path, right? They know the path. So we are talking about the Brahma realm. I'm unable to say it.
That's what I mean is, does that mean that there is some like the niyama for them not to talk about that? Something like that. That's what I mean by is so the noble people just stop talking about that.
Maybe they, after some time, they are not able to convince the others because they are not very good in teaching like the Buddha. Maybe that was the reason, because when after a long time, the Putujanas are there, and because giving a completely a new Dhamma is something is different from referring to a quotation from a teacher. So maybe that was that they are not very influential like a Buddha to bring up the sasana again, because of their inability, lack of ability in preaching. That can be one reason. Then still a question can be asked, okay, other nobles, other Putujanas, it makes sense, right? Other Putujanas, it makes sense. We can argue that their ability in preaching the Dhamma is not that of a Buddha's level. So when they are preaching the Dhamma newly, maybe they are not that much influential to explain it. Then a question comes, how Asaji convinced Sariputta, because Sariputta didn't meet the Buddha. Asaji was preaching the Dhamma and still he got enlightened by a Savaka. So this is also another counter argument that we can bring. But then also the very visible counter argument that we can bring is obvious one. Okay, forget about the other Putujanas, why they couldn't come and explain the Bodhisattva the path. So he could easily understand it and attain it. Yeah, it's a very valid question, and which unfortunately I'm unable to answer. It's a very valid question.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Yeah.
I haven't seen any answer for that. I haven't seen this. This question haunted me in my mind for some time, but I haven't seen any convincing answer to this question.
Right. Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay. So shall we call it a day then, because it's already 11 there, right?
Okay, Bhante. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bhante. It's really, really, really wonderful.
Wish you all the best. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu.